and for me to have you here. It's so great to see an old classmate." She thought a little flattery would make him forget what she'd just done. She had seriously underestimated Charlie. When Isaac heard Sabrina's words, he asked in, "Sabrina, you and Mr. Charlie are classmates?" "Yes." "Me? Not worthy, and you are?" Wendell's eyes darkened. "You're a loser who can't even take care of his own wife. She made a huge mistake marrying you. With me, she can have everything she wants." Charlie's face turned cold. He lowered his voice and said, "I'll give you two choices. One, you're going to get down on your knees and apologize to Claire. In front of everyone, you will take back every word you just said. Two, I will completely bankrupt your family's company. Your call." "Are you serious? Who the hell do you think you are? You're going to bankrupt my company?" Wendell laughed wildly, looking at Charlie with pure disgust. He clearly didn't take him seriously. "Are you delusional? How are you going to do that? Do you have any idea what my family's company is worth?" Charlie was expressionless. He stared at Wendell for a moment as if he were looking at a child, then casually took out his phone and dialed Stephen. "In 3 minutes. I want to see Wendell's company bankrupt, its assets liquidated, and its debts through the roof." Making a multi-billion-dollar company go bankrupt in 3 minutes? It was a total fantasy. Wendell stared at Charlie with a sneer. "Damn, you really think you're something? Think you're some kind of superhero?" Then Wendell said coldly, "Loser, stop pretending. I'll give you two choices, too. One, you kneel down and apologize to me, then divorce Claire immediately. Two, I'll get a few guys to wipe you off the face of the earth. Then you can watch me and Claire be all lovey-dovey. The choice is yours. You have 1 minute." Charlie looked down at his phone. "You have 1 minute left. Are you sure you can't be saved? Screw you. You have 30 seconds to think about it. If you don't get on your knees, I will make you regret this for the rest of your life," Wendell said, his voice dripping with contempt. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. Time's up. Don't blame me for being cruel. You're the loser who brought this on yourself. Wendell straightened his collar, then motioned to a few of his bodyguards, ready to take care of Charlie. But at that exact moment, Wendell's cell phone rang. Wendell was taken aback. He saw it was his father calling and quickly answered. "Dad, I'm at the party. Are you here yet?" On the other end of the line, Wendell's father was screaming. "You idiot! Who did you piss off? What have you done? All our shareholders are dumping stock like crazy. Our stock has dropped more than 90%. Then his father yelled again. "The bank is calling in all our loans. All of our partners just pulled out and won't pay us. Our cash flow is gone. The only thing left is bankruptcy and liquidation." Listening to the voice on the phone, the color drained from Wendell's face. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead. "Our family is finished. Completely finished." Wendell wanted to ask what was happening, but then he heard police sirens wailing through the phone. It was followed by the sound of a door crashing open and a police officer telling his father to cooperate with an investigation. He went completely limp. The phone slipped from his hand and shattered on the ground. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees in front of Charlie. A gust of wind blew past, but it was nothing compared to the chill in his heart. His bodyguards saw this and froze, completely stunned. They didn't move an inch. Wendell was terrified. He whispered to Charlie, "Who are you? You did this, didn't you?" The crowd of onlookers was just as shocked. Wendell takes one phone call, and suddenly he's on his knees in front of the Wilson family's son-in-law. What was going on? Charlie looked down at him, leaned in, and said in a low voice, "I gave you a choice. You just chose the wrong one." I know I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please, just let me go. This has nothing to do with you. I never touched her. I had nothing to do with the Grand Group contract. I made it all up. I'm begging you. Please forgive me and my family." Wendell kept bowing and scraping on the ground, begging for forgiveness. He never could have imagined that the Wilson family's live-in son-in-law had this kind of power. One phone call, and his family was destroyed. When he finally lifted his head and looked at Charlie's face, he realized that this ordinary-looking man was more terrifying than any demon. Someone who could bankrupt his family in minutes was not someone you could afford to cross. Charlie shook his head. "You should be grateful. At least I'm letting you live. Otherwise, your whole family would be dead." As soon as Charlie said this, Wendell's face went white, and his entire body started shaking uncontrollably. Charlie looked at him and said coldly, "Let me spell it out for you. I am that superhero from the internet. If you don't want to die, you'll keep my identity a secret. Otherwise, you and your father won't be around tomorrow morning." With that, Charlie patted Wendell's cheek and walked into the hall without a second glance. Wendell just collapsed to the ground, too scared to do anything about the humiliating gesture. When he saw Charlie walk into the hall, Wendell scrambled inside after him. He frantically looked around until he spotted Claire. He crawled over to her, got on his knees at her feet, and started bowing and scraping, crying, "Claire, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have spread those rumors. The Grand Group project, that had nothing to do with me. I made it all up. Please, just let me go." Claire was completely stunned by this. She quickly backed away, bumping right into a warm embrace. Claire looked back and saw it was Charlie holding her. Charlie had spotted Claire the moment he walked in. She'd clearly taken great care getting ready and looked absolutely stunning, like a star shining in the crowd. When he saw Wendell rushing toward her, Charlie stepped in and caught her in his arms to keep her from falling, shooting a furious look at Wendell. The look was enough to terrify Wendell, who scrambled away on his hands and knees, desperate not to make Charlie even angrier. Claire asked confused, "What's wrong with him?" Charlie held her close and whispered, "I think he's lost his mind. Just ignore him." Even though they were husband and wife, they had never been this close before. Feeling the warmth of Charlie's arms around her, Claire's ears turned bright red. She quickly pulled away from Charlie's embrace and stammered, Chairman Wade from the Grand Group should be here. I should go find him." Just as Wendell was running off, Harold walked in with his sister Wendy and her fiancé Gerald White. With Gerald was another young guy in expensive clothes. He actually looked a little like Gerald. Harold ran right into Wendell and said quickly, "Hey, Wendell, I just got here and heard something happened to your family. Is that true?" Wendell looked completely defeated. He pushed Harold aside, muttering, "It's over. It's all over." Harold asked, looking concerned, "Mr. Jones, what's wrong with you?" Wendell just shook his head, terrified. He didn't dare say a word. He was sure that if he said the wrong thing, he'd be a dead man on the street by tomorrow. So Wendell yanked his arm out of Harold's grasp and ran off, completely hopeless. Harold watched him go and sighed. Damn, I guess his family's really finished. That was fast, right? Everything was fine yesterday, and now they're bankrupt. Then Harold spotted Charlie and Claire and got a nasty idea. He rushed over to Claire. "Claire, let me introduce you to a very important guest. This is Gerald's cousin, Fred White, the eldest son of the White family." "Fred, this is my cousin, Claire," Harold said to Fred with a fawning look on his face. Fred's eyes had been glued to Claire ever since he walked in. As soon as Harold introduced them, he quickly held out his hand. "Hello, Claire. I've heard for a long time how beautiful the Wilson family's daughter is. Now that I see you, I can say the rumors don't do you justice." Charlie's eyes flashed with annoyance. His wife was beautiful, and it was getting really old dealing with all the flies buzzing around her, one after another. So Charlie stepped in, shook Fred's hand first, and said coldly, "Hello, I'm Claire's husband." "You?" Fred looked Charlie up and down with obvious disgust. He pulled his hand back quickly and said with a sneer, "I didn't realize Claire was married. What a waste. Like a beautiful flower planted in a pile of cow crap." Wendy quickly jumped in. "Fred, this loser is just a live-in son-in-law for our family. He doesn't have a job or any skills." Then she gave Fred a deliberate wink and added, "Fred, once I marry Gerald, we'll all be family. We should definitely see more of each other." Fred knew exactly what she was getting at. She was giving him the green light to go after Claire. He smiled and said, "Miss Claire is as beautiful as an angel. I would love nothing more than to get to know her better." Just then, Charlie saw his mother-in-law, Elaine, and his father-in-law, Jacob, walking over. Elaine rushed right up to Claire and said, "Claire, have you heard? The Jones family is bankrupt." "What?" Claire asked, shocked. "When did that happen?" "Just now," Elaine sighs. "I was hoping you'd eventually divorce Charlie and get with Wendell, but I guess that's out the window now." Charlie was completely exasperated. Was his mother-in-law really this clueless? Didn't she have any idea who she was really dealing with when it came to her son-in-law? When Fred saw Elaine, he rushed over and introduced himself. "You must be Claire's mother, right? I'm Gerald's cousin, Fred. You're so beautiful, it's no wonder you have such a gorgeous daughter like Claire." When Elaine heard that Fred was not only Gerald's cousin, but also the eldest son of the wealthy White family, her eyes lit up. She said enthusiastically, "Yes, I'm Claire's mother. Are you and Claire friends?" Fred nodded and smiled. "You could say that. We only just met today, actually." Elaine was overjoyed. She nodded quickly and said, "Well, let's all find a place to sit. Don't just stand there." "Mr. White, you young people should definitely get to know each other better." "Mom!" Claire exclaimed, cutting her mother off before she could say anything else. Elaine opened her mouth to say more, but Claire touched her arm and motioned toward the stage, reminding her to pay attention. Just then, Mrs. Wilson stepped into the spotlight. She looked around the room, beaming, then stood at the microphone and smiled. "First of all, on behalf of the Wilson family, I'd like to welcome all of our dear friends and partners to our banquet tonight. Next, please join me in welcoming the Vice Chairman of the Emgrand Group, Miss Doris Young." The spotlight instantly swung over, illuminating a woman in the front row. Dressed in a black evening gown, her perfect figure was on full display. Under the lights, she was as dazzling as a fairy, and every man in the room couldn't help to stare. The Vice Chairman of the Emgrand Group. An incredible beauty! Either one of those titles alone was enough to capture everyone's attention. Doris stood and gave a polite nod to the crowd. When her eyes found Charlie, they lingered for a moment before she looked away. Mrs. Wilson continued her speech. "Today, I want to give a special thanks to the Emgrand Group for entrusting such an important project to the Wilson family. I promise, the Wilson family will give it our all to live up to the trust Emgrand has placed in us. And secondly, we want to introduce you all to an outstanding young member of our Wilson family. If it weren't for this person, we would have never secured this partnership with Emgrand. Also, after discussing it as a group, we've decided to nominate this person as the Wilson Group's new director. They will be solely responsible for our project with the Emgrand Group." Elaine said excitedly, "Oh, Claire, it's your turn to go on stage." Even though Claire was prepared to go up, she was still nervous. Charlie immediately gave her an encouraging look. Harold looked over at a thrilled Claire and couldn't help but let a smirk creep onto his face. Mrs. Wilson also looked at their table and said with a smile, Please welcome the new director of the Wilson Group, Harold Wilson." Claire froze. She looked to the side in disbelief, only to see Harold proudly walking up to the stage. Charlie's eyes went cold. What a classic bait and switch. After using Claire, the Wilson family just threw her aside without a single thought for her feelings. Claire's eyes immediately turned red, and tears welled up. Without a second thought, she stood up and ran out of the room, not looking back. She had been so happy when she arrived, and now she was completely devastated. Charlie watched her go, his face growing even colder. Bullying his wife? They were asking for trouble. Meanwhile, Harold stood on stage and said proudly, "Thank you for the company's trust in me. I will definitely work hard as director, and I will absolutely complete the project the Grand Group has given us." Mrs. Wilson nodded, satisfied. She took the microphone back and said, "There is one more important announcement for this banquet. We are fortunate to have with us tonight the new chairman of the Grand Group. Please give your warmest applause and welcome Chairman Wade." The room erupted in thunderous applause. Every guest here tonight came to see the new chairman of the Grand Group. Everyone was dying to get a look at him. People were whispering among themselves, trying to guess who would stand up. Someone even said, "I bet the mysterious chairman of the Grand Group is the same person as that mystery hero who went viral online from that thing at Rare Earth. I think that's totally possible." The silhouette of that hero didn't look like anyone from around Oris Hill. Oh my God! If that's true, then the chairman of the Grand Group is the most powerful and richest person in all of Oris Hill, isn't he? I can't wait to see who it really is. Amid the wild applause, as everyone stared with anticipation, Charlie slowly stood up, a cold expression on his face. As everyone stared in disbelief, Charlie slowly stood up. In an instant, every eye in the banquet hall was on him. "Charlie, what are you doing? Sit down!" Elaine hissed, terrified. Didn't he know his place? With so many powerful people in the room, none of them had dared to stand up. And you, Charlie, a good-for-nothing son-in-law, what made him think he could steal the spotlight? Fred and Gerald shot each other a look, a wild thought crossing their minds. No way! Could the chairman of the Grand Group really be him? But then they both shook their heads. Impossible. If he was really the chairman of Grand, why would he let Elaine talk to him like that? "You piece of trash! Sit back down where you belong!" Harold yelled from the stage, his face dark. Charlie gave him a cold glance, then walked straight toward Doris Young. He completely ignored the shocked stares from everyone in the room and whispered something in her ear. As he spoke, Doris Young nodded slightly. The sight made everyone's hearts skip a beat. Doris Young, the vice chairman of the Grand Group, the most famous beauty in all of Oris Hill. How could Charlie possibly know her? And from the looks of it, their relationship seemed pretty close. After he finished speaking, Charlie turned and walked out of the hall, ignoring all the eyes on him. He was going after Claire. But then Doris Young stood up, walked onto the stage, and took the microphone. Facing the sea of blank faces, she said, "Hello, everyone. I'm Doris Young. Mr. Charlie met our chairman outside just a moment ago. He was just delivering a message." Hearing that Charlie wasn't the chairman of Grand, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Fred White let out a relieved breath and whispered with contempt, "So he just met the guy once and tried to use it to get close to the assistant? What a loser." Gerald shrugged and said with a smile, "That's just what pathetic little guys like him do." Just then, Doris Young, still on the stage, looked over at Mrs. Wilson, her expression turning icy. "The chairman has asked me to inform you of something. Effective immediately, the Grand Group is terminating its cooperation with the Wilsons, and the signed contract is now void." The room erupted. No one expected Doris to say something like that. The sudden reversal left everyone completely stunned. Mrs. Wilson's face went white in an instant. She asked anxiously, "Dear Vice Chairman, what is this all about? Is there something our Wilson family did wrong?" Tonight, she had invited every respectable person in the city, hoping to use this opportunity to make a name for the Wilson family. If, in front of everyone, they were crushed underfoot right after securing the cooperation, it would be a total disaster. Doris said, "This project was originally approved by our chairman because of Miss Claire. That's why we agreed to cooperate with you. But you went ahead and made your own decision, putting some random person in charge of the project. I'm sorry, we can't accept that." After saying her piece, Doris put down the microphone and walked out of the room without a backward glance. Mrs. Wilson's face was ashen. She slumped onto the stage, completely defeated. She never imagined that her moment of cleverness would have ruined this golden opportunity for good. If she had known this would happen, she never would have let Harold take Claire's directorship. Harold was also at a complete loss. What just happened? It felt like Doris was deliberately targeting him, but he hadn't even done anything to offend her. Harold couldn't help but ask Mrs. Wilson, "Grandma, the director's appointment has already been announced. You're not going to take it back, are you?" Mrs. Wilson struggled to her feet, raised her hand, and slapped him across the face. She scolded him. "You worthless fool! Even now you're still thinking about the directorship!"
When Charlie stepped outside, he found Claire not far away. She was squatting in a quiet corner next to the hotel, crying her heart out. He walked over slowly, took off his coat, and draped it over her shoulders. "Honey, don't be sad," he said softly. "The director position at the Wilson family isn't that great anyway. It's wrong for them to treat you like this." "You don't understand," Claire whimpered. "If I become the director, my parents could finally hold their heads high in the family. How could Grandma go back on her word like that?" Charlie continued trying to cheer her up. "Maybe they'll have to come begging you to be the director. You're crying so much now your makeup will be a mess if you have to go back on stage." Claire choked on a sob. "How is that possible? Grandma made her decision. There's no chance she'll change her mind. Just leave me alone." Just then, Mrs. Wilson and Harold burst out of the banquet hall. Mrs. Wilson was old and out of breath from running. A large crowd of guests followed them out, eager to see the drama unfold. When Harold saw Charlie and Claire, he rushed over. He glared down at Claire and snapped. "Claire, hurry up and go after Miss Doris. Tell her not to terminate the cooperation with us." Claire looked up. "Terminate the cooperation? Why?" Harold said, "Stop pretending you're so innocent. You must have told Miss Doris to embarrass me in public. If you don't fix this, I'll make you pay." Mrs. Wilson, who was standing right there, slapped Harold across the face again. "You fool! How dare you talk to your sister like that? She is the director of our Wilson group." Harold was stunned. "But Grandma, you chose me as the director." Mrs. Wilson said furiously, "If you hadn't filled my head with your nonsense, I never would have changed my mind in the first place. If you keep arguing, you can get out of the Wilson family." Having been slapped twice by Mrs. Wilson, Harold was furious, but he didn't dare say another word. He could only bite his tongue and swallow his anger. Mrs. Wilson then turned to Claire and pleaded, "Claire, Grandma is begging you. You are the director of the Wilson family now. Please, hurry and talk to Miss Doris, otherwise our family will be ruined." Claire looked at Charlie, her face a mask of confusion. Charlie just shrugged. "I told you they'd come begging you to be the director. You didn't believe me. See? Now your makeup is all runny." Claire blushed, quickly wiping away her tears. "Okay," she said. "I'll try to contact M. Grand." With that, she dialed Doris's number. All eyes were on her. After a moment, the call went through. Claire said, "Hello, Miss Young. My grandmother asked me to call and explain. I've been promoted to director for the Wilson family, and I'll be in charge of the cooperation with M. Grand. Can you give us another chance? Doris laughed lightly. If you're the director and you're the one in charge, then there's no problem. The cooperation can continue. But if it's someone else, then things stay as they are. Miss Young, thank you so much. Claire was still confused by the whole thing. From the very beginning, it seemed like the M. Grand Group was going out of its way just to help her, which felt really strange. Doris said with a smile, "This is what our chairman wanted. If there's an opportunity in the future, he'll explain it to you himself." This only made Claire more confused. Who was this chairman? She had never seen him. Why was he helping her so much? "Then, could you please come back to the banquet hall?" Claire asked nervously. The woman had left in a huff, clearly annoyed with the Wilson family. Asking her to come back now seemed like a long shot. But to her surprise, Doris agreed without hesitation. Soon, everyone saw Doris's car pull back up to the hotel entrance. In that moment, everyone stared at Claire, their expressions a mix of shock and awe. When everyone was back in the banquet hall, Mrs. Wilson took Claire's hand and led her onto the stage. Putting on a show of closeness, she said, "I am so sorry about what happened earlier. It was my mistake. Actually, we have Claire to thank for all of this. She is the most outstanding member of the Wilson family. The cooperation between the Wilson family and Ford Fusion is all thanks to Claire's hard work. She put in a tremendous effort." Doris Young, standing beside her, shot her a look of contempt. She held up a hand to cut her off. "Let me correct you on that," she said. "For this cooperation, Miss Claire didn't just make a great effort. It's happening entirely because of her. It has nothing to do with anyone else. It was incredibly rude, but no one was surprised." With the power Doris held, she could have slapped Mrs. Wilson right there in public, and the old woman wouldn't have dared to say a word. Mrs. Wilson nodded quickly. "Miss Young is right. All the credit goes to Claire. From now on, Claire will be the director of the Wilson family's business. She will be fully responsible for the cooperation between the Wilson family and the M. Grand Group." A small smile appeared on Doris's face. She shook Claire's hand and said, "I look forward to a successful partnership." Claire, still a bit lost, could only nod in a daze. The room erupted in thunderous applause. Everyone looked at Claire, their eyes full of admiration. This woman was going places. The M. Grand Group took her so seriously. Claire herself was just as confused. She turned to look at Charlie. The situation was exactly as he had predicted. Mrs. Wilson had given her back the director position that should have been hers all along. Even after the banquet ended and they were back home, Claire was still in a daze. Thinking back to what Charlie had said, she couldn't help but feel puzzled. Over the past few days, Charlie seemed different. It felt like there was a lot about him she didn't understand, as if he were surrounded by a fog. That night, Claire became famous in Orris Hill. Everyone knew there was a rising star in the Wilson family, and that the M. Grand Group had her back. It seemed that with her, the Wilson family's comeback was just around the corner. The next morning, Claire woke up early, feeling refreshed, and hurried to the office. Today was her first day as director. She hoped she could give it her all and do a great job. After Charlie got up, he went about his usual routine of doing the housework. Charlie had just finished his chores and was about to head to the market for groceries when he got a sudden call from his mother-in-law, Elaine. He answered, and her frantic voice came through the phone. "Charlie, you have 10 minutes to get down to Safety Lane, or I swear you'll regret it when I get home." With that, she hung up. Charlie was confused. He hadn't heard from his mother-in-law all morning, and now she was calling in a panic, like it was some kind of emergency? Even though Charlie couldn't stand his mother-in-law, he didn't dare ignore her demand. He quickly tidied up, then went outside to hail a cab and rushed over to Safety Lane. When he got out of the car, he saw a group of older folks angrily gathered in front of a closed insurance company. And right at the front of the crowd was his mother-in-law, holding a banner and shouting, "Harley is trash! A total scam! We want our rights and we want our hard-earned money back!" Charlie hurried over to her. "Mom, you called me. What's going on?" As he spoke, the angry chants started up again, the crowd of seniors shouting so loudly it made his ears ring. Elaine pulled Charlie into her spot and ordered, "Here, you take over. Shout the slogan for me. I've been yelling all morning and my voice is shot." Charlie didn't really get it, but he joined in the protest with the older folks. While chanting slogans, he asked one of the older guys next to him what was happening, and finally got the story. It turned out that this Harley insurance company had been offering policies with crazy high returns, and these seniors were lured in by the promise of big payouts. They all bought a bunch of policies from the company. It was supposed to be the day they collected their dividends, but when they showed up to get their money, they found the company's doors locked. A couple of employees were there, just feeding everyone flimsy excuses. This group of seniors realized they'd been scammed. No wonder his mother-in-law had called him in such a panic and made him come join her. Thinking about it, Charlie's stomach dropped. He couldn't help but ask his mother-in-law, "Mom, how much did you invest in this?" Elaine said nervously, "They told me I'd get huge dividends. I got carried away and put all our savings into their policies." Charlie was floored. "What? All our savings went into this?" Hearing that, Elaine immediately snapped at him. "Do you have to have a big mouth? Don't you think I'm embarrassed enough? Why are you shouting?" She kept on nagging. "If you'd ever brought in any real money, I wouldn't have had to risk it on this company. With a useless son-in-law like you around, what other choice did I have to make our money grow?" This guy. It's one thing that he doesn't support the family, but now he's judging her as if he could have done better with that money. Then she said to Charlie, "I'm telling you, you stay here and keep chanting. Don't you dare stop for a second." Charlie could only nod and say, resigned, "Okay, Mom." Just then, a few of the other women came over. They looked Charlie up and down, then asked Elaine, "Elaine, is this your son-in-law?" As they talked, they gave his clothes another once-over, shook their heads, and chuckled. "Why does he look so shabby? He doesn't look like much of a son-in-law." "Yeah, those clothes have seen better days. He can't compare to someone from Lady Wilson's family." Some people are just so good at putting others down, and every word was dripping with contempt. Charlie didn't care. They were all older women with one foot in the grave, and now they'd lost their life savings. He didn't see any point in arguing with them. Elaine was fuming, and the sight of Charlie just made her even angrier. She snapped, "Look at him. I'm going to make my daughter divorce him in a few days. She can do so much better with a new husband." Charlie scoffed to himself. Even if you gathered all the rich kids in Orris Hill, they couldn't hold a candle to him. Elaine was getting desperate. Charlie was useless. The most he could do was shout slogans for her. To get her investment back, she needed someone with real power to step in and fix this. It was a shame the family of Wendell Jones, who'd been after her daughter, had gone bankrupt. Otherwise, she could have asked them for help. That's it! Elaine suddenly remembered Gerald's brother Fred White, the one she'd met at the family banquet yesterday. He was her best hope. From the way he was looking at her daughter, she figured he had a thing for Claire. The White family might not be as powerful as the Jones family used to be, but they were still a big deal. If she called him, he might be able to do something. As luck would have it, Fred White had given her his business card yesterday. She pulled out her phone and dialed his number. The call connected almost immediately. Elaine said, "Hey, is this Fred? This is Claire's mother." Ever since Fred saw Claire at the banquet, he'd been completely captivated. He couldn't get her out of his head. He was worried he'd never get a chance to get close to her, and then, out of the blue, her mother called him. He figured Elaine was in some kind of trouble, and he wasn't about to pass up an opportunity to look good, so he quickly put on a polite tone. "Elaine, is everything okay?" "Well, there is something I need your help with," Elaine said, getting straight to the point. "Fred, a few of my friends and I bought some investment products from an insurance company called Harley, and we put all our savings into it. But now the company won't let us withdraw our money. Can you figure out a way to help me get it back?" Fred was ecstatic when he heard this. He saw this as his moment to shine and said confidently, "Don't you worry, I'm on my way over right now. I'll definitely help you solve this." Elaine was thrilled. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice full of relief. After hanging up, she shot a glare at Charlie and said angrily, "Some people have no skills whatsoever. You just can't count on them. Besides shouting a few slogans, what good are they? Completely useless." Charlie just smirked. His mother-in-law was so materialistic and clueless. Calling Fred for help? This company had scammed people out of at least tens of millions. Anyone who dared to pull off a scam that big must have some serious connections, maybe even with the criminal underworld. How could Fred White possibly make them give the money back? The White family's power was pretty average, and after the M. Grand Group cut ties with them, they were even weaker. With their influence, it was basically impossible for them to intervene in such a massive financial fraud case. Honestly, this little problem could be solved with a single phone call to Isaac Craven from Aurelius Grand. After all, he was the Wade family's representative in Oris Hill. Any entrepreneur or major figure in the city, legitimate or not, had to show him respect. But his mother-in-law was just so frustrating. Since she believed in Fred, he'd let Fred try to help her. He was curious to see what he could actually do. When the other seniors saw Elaine on the phone, they immediately smiled and crowded around her, asking if she'd found someone important to help them. Elaine proudly announced to the group, "Don't worry, I asked the eldest son of the White family to come and help. He'll make a few calls and hopefully we'll get our hard-earned money back." Someone exclaimed, "The eldest son of the White family? Wow, Elaine, you're amazing! You actually know someone that important?" "Yeah, a guy like Fred White must have a ton of connections. Solving our problem should be a piece of cake for him, right? Just a matter of a few words. Elaine, since you have such good contacts, why did you marry your daughter off to a loser like that instead of someone like him?" Elaine shot Charlie a look of disgust and scoffs. "This bum will be kicked out of the Wilson family sooner or later." Charlie didn't say a word. He was just going to wait and watch Fred White show up and completely fail. Soon enough, a black luxury car pulled up slowly in front of everyone. A young man, in a sharp suit and leather shoes, looking like a real success story, stepped out of the car. It was Fred White. The seniors around them started murmuring in admiration. "Wow, look at that. Now that's a real catch. What a great potential son-in-law. I wonder what lucky girl will get to be his wife someday. Yeah, if my daughter could marry him, I'd die a happy woman." Get real. In your dreams. He wouldn't even look at your girl. Just then, Elaine spotted Fred and rushed over to him, saying desperately, "Oh, Fred, you're here. I was about to lose my mind." Fred smiled and said, "Elaine, I'm sorry to keep you waiting." Elaine quickly replied, "Oh, Fred, you're too polite. I barely waited 10 minutes. You got here so fast." Fred smiled. "I heard you were in trouble, so I hurried over. I ran a few red lights on the way." Elaine looked proud, but she asked with a show of concern, "Isn't it a problem to run so many red lights?" "Not at all," Fred White said casually. "The traffic cops in the city are all friends of mine. One phone call can make any ticket disappear." After boasting, he changed the subject. "Now, let's talk about you. How much money did you get cheated out of?" Elaine sighed. "It was over $1 million in total. We were supposed to get $200,000 in dividends this month,
but now we can't even get our original investment back." Fred nodded and announced loudly, "Don't worry, I'll handle this. Now that I'm on the case, I'll definitely get your money back for you." Just then, he noticed Charlie standing behind Elaine, and his expression shifted. He hadn't expected to see that worthless eyesore Charlie here. Ever since he first saw Claire, Fred White had been smitten. And after his younger brother Gerald mentioned that Claire was probably still single, his interest grew even stronger. So, seeing Claire's loser of a husband, he couldn't help but sneer. He put on a deliberate smile and said, "Oh, look who it is. Charlie's here. Do you have a way to help Elaine get her investment back? Or do you want to give it a try first? You won't turn around and blame me for stealing your spotlight, will you?" Elaine jumped in. "Him? Try? That's a joke. What can he do to help? All he's good for is opening his mouth to shout a few slogans. Fred, just ignore him." Fred nodded and said sarcastically, "Well, since Charlie here doesn't have what it takes, I guess I'll give it a shot." Charlie just smiled slightly. "Go on, Fred. You can do it." Fred laughed with contempt. At that moment, the crowd of seniors swarmed Elaine, all talking at once. "Elaine, can you ask this handsome young man to help us too? We were all cheated out of our hard-earned money." Elaine said arrogantly, "Oh, I can't ask him to do that for all of you. Fred is doing me a personal favor, and he doesn't even know you." The others started begging Fred directly. "Mr. White, you seem so capable. Please help us too." Fred was about to brush them off, but then he noticed how materialistic and greedy Elaine was. He smiled and said, "All right, since you're all friends of Elaine's, I suppose I can do you a favor." When everyone cheered, Fred looked at them with a smug expression and said, "There's just one condition. I'm only doing this for Elaine. So, you'll have to pay her a 10% commission on whatever money I get back for you. Is that acceptable?" "No problem," one of the seniors said immediately. "Getting 90% back is way better than getting nothing at all." As soon as Elaine heard this, her face lit up with glee. The total amount scammed from the group was in the tens of millions. If Fred White could actually get it all back, wouldn't she make millions herself? While Elaine was getting excited, Fred announced loudly, "Everyone, don't worry. I'm going to talk to them right now. Just wait here for the good news." Elaine felt untouchable with Fred backing her up. "Fred, I'm coming with you," she blurted out. Charlie quickly stepped in. "Mom, you should probably stay here. If Fred can't handle this, you could get into real trouble." Elaine snapped angrily. "Are you questioning Fred's abilities?" The other seniors were all counting on Fred to get their life savings back. So when Charlie started expressing doubts, it naturally made everyone angry. Facing their accusations, Charlie said calmly, "Mom, it's safer for you to wait here. It's best if you don't get involved in the negotiation." Elaine wasn't having any of it. She immediately cursed. "Shut your mouth. This has nothing to do with you." Fred's face was full of arrogance. He laughed and said, "You've got no skills, but you're definitely full of jealousy. You think I'm a loser like you who just stands around shouting empty words." Seeing that his mother-in-law wasn't going to listen to him, Charlie stopped trying. He just said lightly, "All right then, I'll be waiting for good news from Mr. White." Charlie was getting fed up with his mother-in-law, Elaine. She was a complete snob, always fooled by appearances. To put it simply, she was just like Lady Wilson, all style and no substance. His mother-in-law had no foresight and just had to jump into the mess herself. There was no talking her down from her high horse. Elaine, completely clueless that Charlie was just trying to help, shot him a nasty look. Then, in the next second, she turned to Fred and said apologetically, "Mr. Fred, please don't pay any attention to the nonsense he's spouting. I have absolute faith in you." Fred smiled triumphantly. It's all right, Elaine. I'm not going to lower myself to the level of a wimp. With that, he said energetically, Elaine, let's go. Okay. Fred led Elaine through the crowd and walked right up to the door of the Harley Insurance Company. As soon as they got to the door, he shouted at the employees blocking the entrance. Go tell your boss to refund all these people's money immediately. Otherwise, I'm getting my legal team and the police involved. When that happens, you and your boss will be arrested. Elaine chimed in from the side. You hear that, you crooks? We've got powerful people on our side now. If your scam of a company doesn't give us our money back, be careful, because Mr. White here will send every last one of you to prison. The young employee at the head of the line got nervous. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I'm just a security guard. I don't handle the actual business. Then call your boss, Fred said coldly. Tell him that Fred White from the Oris Hill Elite is here. He needs to come down and deal with this personally, or else he'll have to face the consequences. As he said this, Fred's face was full of arrogance. While the White family wasn't at the top of the food chain in Oris Hill, they were at least a mid-level power. He figured the boss of a scam company would have no choice but to fold after hearing his name. The young employee didn't know how deep Fred's connections ran, but he was definitely spooked, so he immediately called his boss. Right then, in the chairman's office at Harley Insurance Company, the boss, Harley Fitzpatrick, was waiting on a flat-faced, middle-aged man in his 40s. He was all smiles as he pulled a bank card from his desk drawer and handed it over respectfully. Mr. Hudson, he said, there's $30 million on this card. The pin is your birthday. This is your cut for this round. Please, have a look. The middle-aged man was dressed in a sharp suit. He looked a little unhinged, but his eyes weren't angry. They were commanding. The guy had an incredible presence. If anyone else had been in the room, they would have immediately recognized him. He was Orville Hudson. In all of Oris Hill, everyone knew that Orville Hudson was the city's underground kingpin. Nobody dared to cross him. Orville Hudson looked at Harley Fitzpatrick and smiled with approval. Harley, he said, I didn't realize you had it in you. Not bad. Not bad at all. Harley quickly asked, Mr. Hudson, what should we do about that troublemaker Mrs. Wilson downstairs? Orville said casually, a bunch of old folks. Don't worry about them. If they don't listen to you, I'll have some of my guys come over and teach them a lesson. Harley breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Orville Hudson smiled. From now on, just go for it with this kind of business. As long as you're making money, I'll take care of any problems you have. Harley was ecstatic. He put on a humble expression and said, Thank you, Mr. Hudson. With you backing me up, I'll keep pushing harder and we'll both make a fortune. Harley didn't come from a powerful family in Oris Hill, but he had one thing going for him. He was clever and knew how to run scams. He got into financial fraud, and knowing he couldn't handle that much dirty money on his own, he went to Orville for help. He offered Orville a cut of the illegal profits in exchange for protection. Since Orville Hudson called the shots in Oris Hill, Harley was completely safe. With Orville as his backer, he didn't have a single worry about the future, and his fraudulent business was booming. Just as Harley was getting excited about his new connection with Orville, his phone rang. It was one of his employees. Boss, we've got a problem. There's a guy here, Fred, who says he's from the White family. He's demanding all the money back right now, or he'll have you sent to prison. Damn it, what's this about? Harley frowned and quickly turned to Orville. Mr. Hudson, there's a guy downstairs claiming to be from the White family, leading that group of old folks to cause trouble. He's going around saying he runs this city and that we have to give back all the money we collected or he'll put us in prison. Harley deliberately exaggerated to get a rise out of Orville. As he spoke, he bowed again and begged, Mr. Hudson, the White family has some real pull here in Oris Hill. If they come after me, I really can't afford to make an enemy of them. Please, you've got to help me get through this. The White family? Orville snorted. The little White family is a joke to me. Even the head of their family has to bow and scrape when he sees me. Now some kid of theirs has the nerve to come after me? He must have a death wish. Ha 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 ha. With that, Orville slid Harley's bank card into his pocket and said coldly, "Let's go. I want to see what kind of nobody thinks he can step to me." When Orville Hudson takes money, nobody gets it back. Fred stood at the door of Harley Insurance Company with a proud look on his face. He knew this was the perfect chance to show off in front of Claire's mother, Elaine, and he had to nail it. If he could win over the mom, getting the daughter would be easy. He'd be able to get with Claire, one of the most beautiful women in Orris Hill. The thought alone made him excited. So he announced loudly, "Folks, don't you worry. The boss of this scam company is coming out right now to give everyone a full refund." When the crowd heard this, they erupted in applause, every single one of them ecstatic. Only Charlie watched Fred with a smirk. This guy was way too full of himself. Charlie had a feeling he was about to get a rude awakening. Just as Fred was soaking in the crowd's admiration, chin held high, the door to Harley Insurance Company was suddenly pushed open from the inside. They saw the boss, Harley Fitzpatrick, walk out with a middle-aged man in a stylish suit. Even though the man was a bit older, he had an incredible presence. It was Orville Hudson. Behind Orville, several tough-looking men followed closely. These were his personal bodyguards, and they all looked incredibly strong. Orville's status was so high that even though many people in Orris Hill knew his name, most had never actually seen him. So no one, not even Fred, recognized him. Everyone only recognized Harley Fitzpatrick, the boss of Harley Insurance. The crowd immediately erupted. "Look, Elaine! Fred really got Mr. Fitzpatrick to come out! He's amazing!" "Yeah, it's all thanks to Elaine. We might actually get our money back." Elaine? That young man is a real catch. He'd make 1,000 times better son-in-law. Elaine soaked up the flattery from the others, feeling incredibly pleased with herself. Fred had really helped her look good in front of everyone today. Thinking about it made her smile even wider. The way she looked at Fred was with pure satisfaction. Just then, Fred strode forward triumphantly, puffing out his chest. He didn't know Harley Fitzpatrick, and he didn't know Orville Hudson either. But since Harley seemed to be showing respect to Orville, he just assumed Orville was the boss. So he looked at Orville and said proudly, "Are you the boss of Harley Insurance Company?" Orville replied with a slight smile. "I'm not the boss. I just help him out. But if you've got something to say, you can say it to me." Fred's face lit up with understanding, and then he sneers. "Oh, so you're just some flunky. You're not important enough to talk to me. Get lost and send your boss out here." Charlie just shook his head, looking at Fred like he was an idiot. The man in the suit clearly had a commanding presence, with his crew right behind him. He was obviously not someone to mess with. But Fred was still running his mouth, practically begging for trouble. Elaine, standing nearby, also sneers and chimed in. "Fred, don't waste your breath on this nobody. The guy next to him is the boss of Harley Insurance." Harley Fitzpatrick was floored. This Fred and that old woman had some nerve. They actually dared to insult Orville Hudson like he was some street punk and tell him to get lost. They had no idea who they were dealing with. In all of Orris Hill, who would dare to be so bold as to insult Orville? Anyone who did would end up at the bottom of the river feeding the fish. The moment Fred finished speaking, one of Orville's powerful men stepped forward, grabbed Fred's hair, and slapped him hard across the face. "You piece of crap! You dare to insult Mr. Hudson? Who the hell do you think you are?" After that, he turned to Elaine, slapped her hard, and yelled, "You old hag! You have the nerve to insult Mr. Hudson too? Believe me, I'll shut that mouth of yours for good." Those words hit Fred and Elaine like a bolt of lightning. What? The man in the suit was the famous Orville Hudson of Orris Hill?
and they had just been insulting him so carelessly. The thought made both their faces turn ghost white in an instant. Cold sweat drenched their clothes, and they were scared out of their minds. Fred was the first to react. He dropped to his knees right in front of Orville. Bowing his head to the ground over and over, he cried and begged, "Fifth Lord, I was wrong. I am so sorry. I was blind. I didn't recognize you. I shouldn't have said those things. These damn old folks have nothing to do with me. Please, I'm begging you, spare my life." When he finished, he stayed on his knees, slapping his own face and apologizing again. He completely broke down, crying. He never would have guessed that the backer for this scam company was the famous Orville of the Oris Hill. A man that powerful was someone he couldn't afford to cross, not even with his entire family's influence. He was filled with so much regret he wished he could just drop dead. He had just wanted to use this as a chance to do a favor for Claire's mother, hoping it would give him an in with Claire. But instead, before he got anywhere, he'd gone and offended Orville, probably sealing his own fate. If his father found out about this, he'd kill him for sure. The crowd of elderly people watched, completely shocked. They had been counting on Fred to help them get their money back. Who would have thought that a second later, he'd be on his knees begging for forgiveness from the man in the suit? And Elaine, who had been so proud just moments before, now looked completely humiliated after being slapped a few times. Orville snorted and said to his men, "Since this guy can't keep his mouth shut, I want you to take turns giving him 10,000 slaps. Don't stop until you're done." Fred was terrified at the thought of 10,000 slaps. He was sure they would beat him to death. Just then, one of Orville's men pointed to Elaine, who was sprawled on the ground, and asked, "Fifth Lord, what about her?" Orville glanced at Elaine with disgust and said flatly, 10,000 for her, too." Elaine collapsed to her knees, her entire body shaking violently. She was scared to death. She had provoked Mr. Hudson. How could she possibly survive this? At that, several of his men stood up. Some grabbed Fred, and others grabbed Elaine, getting ready to start. Charlie had been watching the whole scene unfold from the crowd. When he saw his mother-in-law, a part of him didn't want to intervene. She was always so awful, she deserved a lesson. But 10,000 slaps from Orville's men? If that didn't kill her, it would at least leave her permanently injured. How could he explain that to his wife? It would completely devastate her. He knew he had no choice. He had to step in. Just as a large man raised his hand to slap Elaine's face, Charlie rushed forward and grabbed his wrist. Elaine screamed in terror, squeezing her eyes shut as she braced for the slap. But then she realized the sharp sting of the blow never came. When she opened her eyes, she was stunned. Charlie, her useless son-in-law, had stepped in and blocked the man's hand. This just didn't compute. Her mind went blank for a second. Why was Charlie being so bold? Orville hadn't expected anyone to stand up for this awful woman. He asked coldly, "Who are you?" "You looking to die too?" Charlie gave a small smile. "Mr. Hudson, right? Do me a favor. You can beat this man next to me, but my mother-in-law you can't touch." Orville's face darkened. "This woman is your mother-in-law? What makes you think you're important enough for me to do you any favors?" As he said this, Orville's anger was rising. He was used to being respected by everyone in Oris Hill, but today he'd faced one insult after another. First, Fred had yelled at him. Then this disgusting woman had been chirping at his side. Now some young kid was jumping in and telling him what to do. He was the great Mr. Hudson. Who did these nobodies think they were, contradicting him like this? His rage boiled over, and he yelled to his men, "Kill this punk who clearly doesn't value his life." Charlie just smiled faintly. "Hang on," he said. "I'll make a call and let the person on the other end talk to you." With that, he pulled out his phone and called Isaac Craven. The call connected immediately, and Isaac's respectful voice came through.
Mr. Wade, what can I do for you?
Charlie asked casually. There's a man in Oris Hill named Orville. You know him? Isaac laughed.
Mr. Wade, I know the name. People call him the underground king of Oris Hill, but really, he's just a small-time gangster.
After he spoke, Isaac added, That punk knows I work for the Wade family, so he's always trying to suck up to me. He's hit me up a few times trying to get a meeting, but I've never given him the time of day. Why, Mr. Wade, do you know him? Charlie replied casually. Well, right now, he wants to kill me. On the other end of the line, Isaac exploded. What? Is he crazy? He has a death wish. How dare he mess with the young master? Where are you? I'll send someone over right now and take care of that piece of trash. Charlie said, Just call him. You can tell him yourself. After he spoke, he handed the phone to Orville and said, Here, it's for you. Orville looked skeptical. What was going on here? The kid didn't seem to be bluffing. But could he really have powerful connections? It didn't look like it. His clothes were cheap, probably not even worth $500 altogether. Even his phone looked like a budget model. What kind of backup could this guy possibly have? He was full of doubt. But Orville took the phone anyway and asked cautiously, Hello, this is Orville Hudson. Who is this? You calling to back up this kid? Through the phone, Isaac Craven's voice roared, Orville, have you completely lost your mind? You dare to mess with my master? Believe me when I say this, I will have your entire family of 25 wiped out by tonight, and there won't even be a body left to bury. Orville recognized the voice. It was Isaac Craven, the very man he'd been desperately trying to get in good with. He said he'd messed with his young master? Could he mean this kid standing right in front of him? And the threat about his 25 family members, did that mean Isaac already knew everything about him? Isaac Craven was the face of the Wade family in Oris Hill. The Wade family's power was immense. For them, getting rid of him would be as easy as squashing an ant. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. He started babbling, desperate to save himself. Mr. Craven, please, don't be angry. This is all a huge misunderstanding. I and Mr. You shut your mouth, Isaac snarled. Our young master's identity is a secret. If you so much as breathe a word of this, I'll make sure your family pays the price. Orville started shaking uncontrollably. He stammered, Mr. Craven, I'm so sorry. I messed up. I'll take care of this right away. Just a man like Isaac was someone he would grovel before. But the Wade family, the family this Mr. Charlie belonged to, was on a whole other level. They were so powerful he couldn't even comprehend it, a force he could only ever dream of looking up to. And now, he had gone and directly insulted the young master of the Wade family? He wasn't sure he was going to make it out of this alive. With that thought, Orville's eyes locked onto Charlie. His legs gave out from under him, and he dropped to his knees. Trembling, he said, Mr. Charlie, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was your mother-in-law. I was confused. I apologize. Please, forgive me. Everyone present was speechless. They watched as Orville actually got on his knees to apologize to Charlie, that loser? Even young Mr. White was nothing more than a beaten dog in front of Orville. But this guy made Orville drop to his knees. Who in the world was he? Orville's crew was just as terrified. Mr. Hudson was the king of the Oris Hill underworld. What kind of guy could possibly make him kneel like that? Charlie didn't actually want Orville dead. After all, the man had threatened his mother-in-law, not him. Besides, if he was being completely honest with himself, watching his mother-in-law get taken down a notch was surprisingly satisfying. So he said to Orville, I can forgive you this time, but you have to return my mother-in-law's money, with a profit. Orville couldn't believe his luck. He never expected Charlie to actually forgive him. He practically slammed his head on the floor in gratitude and blurted out, Don't worry, I'll take care of it. With that, He immediately yelled at Harley Fitzpatrick, who was standing nearby. "Hurry up and handle it! Get it done, or I swear I'll break your other leg!" Elaine was completely stunned. Was this really her own useless son-in-law? Even the infamous Orville Hudson was on his knees for him? For a moment, Elaine felt like Charlie's whole image had grown larger in her eyes. He seemed powerful and completely unpredictable. Fred, his face still stinging from the slaps, was just as dumbfounded. Isn't Charlie supposed to be a total loser? Why was a guy like Mr. Hudson so afraid of him? Just then, Harley approached, his face pale, clutching a black briefcase. He went up to Elaine and said nervously, "Miss, your initial investment was $1.3 million, and the promised dividend was $200,000. That's a total of $1.5 million. Here is $2 million. The extra $500,000 is our apology. Please accept it." Elaine was floored. When did her useless son-in-law get this kind of power? Her investment was returned, the $200,000 dividend was returned, and they were giving her an extra $500,000 on top of that? $1.3 million turning into $2 million in a flash made Elaine overjoyed. She couldn't believe it. She immediately turned to Harley, her face full of surprise, and asked, "This $2 million, it's really for me?" Harley nodded quickly. "Of course, it's all yours." "Oh, this is amazing." Elaine was thrilled. Seeing Elaine get $2 million back, $700,000 more than her initial investment, the other seniors went wild with excitement. They figured if she got all her money back with a profit, they should too. So a few of them stepped forward and asked, "Mr. Fitzpatrick, what about our money?" Mr. Fitzpatrick quickly looked over at Orville. Orville hated the idea of giving back money he'd already pocketed, but he had offended Charlie's family. His life could be on the line. He couldn't afford to be cheap now. He blurted out, "Give it all back." Out of respect for Mr. Charlie, everyone gets their money back, with all the profits. The crowd erupted in cheers, but then Charlie's voice cut through the noise, cold and sharp. "Mr. Orville, these people have nothing to do with me. What do you mean you're doing this out of respect for me? Are you trying to guilt-trip me into this?" Orville was taken aback. "Mr. Charlie, what do you mean? I'm a little confused. I don't understand." Charlie said, "Their money has nothing to do with me. If you want to give it back, give it back. If you don't, then don't. But if you dare say you're doing it for me, don't be surprised when I turn on you." These seniors had been mocking him with Elaine just a few minutes ago. Why should he help them get their money back now? In fact, not only was he not going to help them, he was going to make it clear to Orville that refunding their money would be a big mistake. It would offend him. Orville got the message loud and clear. "Mr. Charlie, don't worry. I understand." Then he turned to Harley and ordered, "Only refund Mr. Charlie's mother-in-law's money. No one else gets a dime." What? The seniors who had just been celebrating went ballistic. Some started crying and wailing. Some of them started begging Charlie for mercy, but he completely ignored them. This bunch of disrespectful old folks had sneered at and insulted him. Now that they saw he had power over Orville, they expected him to help them? Were they kidding? Seeing the seniors completely lose their minds, Orville suddenly shouted, "All of you, shut the hell up! Anyone says one more word to bother Mr. Charlie, and I'll take care of you myself." The group of seniors immediately fell silent, not daring to say another word. Orville then looked at Fred White, who was standing there completely stunned. He asked carefully, "Mr. Charlie, this guy here, is he a friend of yours?" Charlie glanced at Fred. Fred immediately started begging, "Charlie, please, help me! Tell Mr. Hudson we're good friends, please!" Charlie snorted coldly and said to Orville, "I don't know this person. You just continue to fulfill your promise. Let him go when you're done with him." Orville understood immediately. He ordered his men, "Damn it, give him some more!" This punk. Just looking at him pisses me off." Fred wailed in terror. "Charlie! I was a fool. I was so stupid. I beg you to help me, please. I'm begging you." Charlie looked at him and said coldly, "We're not related. We're not friends. I don't owe you anything. But you mocked me over and over again, and now you're asking me to save you? Get real. Stop dreaming." Fred completely fell apart, crying, "Charlie, I really know I was wrong. Please, just help me." Seeing the dark look on Charlie's face, Orville immediately yelled at his men. "Damn it, what are you guys waiting for? Why aren't you doing anything? Are you looking for trouble?" Several of his men snapped to attention. They grabbed Fred by his neck and hair, and the sound of slapping echoed through the room. Fred's mouth was soon full of blood and a few broken teeth, but the beating didn't stop. Every slap was incredibly hard. Orville turned to Charlie with a smile. "Mr. Charlie, are you satisfied with this?" Charlie nodded. "Okay, that's enough. I have to go." Orville quickly handed his business card to Charlie respectfully and said, "Mr. Charlie, this is my contact information. If you need anything in the future, just let me know. I'll be there on call." Charlie grunted, taking the card and putting it in his pocket. Then he turned to his mother-in-law, Elaine. "Mom, it's getting late. Let's go back." Even though Elaine had been slapped a few times, she had made $700,000 in the end. So she was grinning from ear to ear. She was also beaming with pride, seeing how her son-in-law commanded so much respect. Charlie took the money and helped Elaine leave. The other seniors all gathered around Charlie. One of them said with a hopeful tone, "Oh, Charlie, it was your auntie who messed up earlier. We didn't expect you to be so impressive, so young and promising. Yeah, Charlie, you're a real talented guy, a cut above the rest. My son-in-law is nothing compared to you," another added. "Do you think you could help us? Just talk to Harvey and ask him to give us our money back. It's all our hard-earned savings." Charlie frowned and said coldly, "Why should I help you? Weren't you all looking down on me just a little while ago? If you want your money back, go ask your own perfect sons-in-law for help." After saying that, he just walked away. Hearing this, everyone was filled with regret. They could only blame themselves. The chance to get their hard-earned money back was completely gone. Thinking of this, some of them slapped themselves hard across the face. One man collapsed to the ground in despair, wailing, "That was my nest egg! My life savings, it's all gone!" But there was nothing they could do. They could only blame their big mouths and the fact that they didn't have a son-in-law like Charlie. On the way home, Elaine turned to Charlie with a huge, fawning smile. "Charlie, how on earth do you know Orville Hudson? Why was he so polite to you?" Charlie just laughed it off. "Me? How would I know a guy like that? I just made a call to a buddy from school, and he was the one with the connections to get Harley to refund the money." When Elaine heard this, she looked disappointed. She was hoping Charlie had some secret power she didn't know about, but it turned out he just had to ask someone else for help. A lot of the excitement she felt vanished in an instant. But still, she got her money back and even made an extra $700,000, which made her feel a little better about Charlie. She leaned in and said to him, "Charlie, you have to keep what happened today a secret for your mom. Don't tell anyone, okay? A woman my age still has her pride, you know." Charlie smiled, a little helpless, but he had no choice but to agree. "I know, Mom." After dealing with his mother-in-law's drama, she took the cash and happily went to the bank to make a deposit. Charlie went straight home. When he walked in, he saw his wife Claire's shoes by the door and knew she was back, so he headed to the bedroom. As soon as he entered, he saw Claire hanging up the phone, a look of surprised excitement on her face. He asked curiously, "Hey, who was that?" Claire said excitedly, "It was my good friend Elsa Gardner. Do you remember her?" "I remember.
Charlie nodded. "We went to college together in Oris Hill. She's from that big family in Eastcliff, right?" "Yes," Claire said. "Elsa's family is a big deal in Eastcliff." Charlie smiled and asked, "So what's up? Is she coming to Oris Hill to visit?" Claire shook her head. "Not just to visit. She's moving here for a job," Charlie asked with suspicion. "She's from a family like that. Why would she leave their business to come work all the way out here in Oris Hill?" "I don't really know," Claire admitted. "She said she's going to work at the Grand Group. As for why she'd come so far to work there, I have no idea." Charlie nodded, but a thought crossed his mind. The Gardner family might not be on the same level as the Wade family, but they still have plenty of influence in Eastcliff. Elsa has no reason to give up her family's company to come work for the Grand Group. Is there some other reason this woman is coming to the Grand Group? Charlie was puzzled, but he couldn't be sure yet. He figured that once Elsa started at the Grand Group, Doris could probably figure out what she was really up to. Just then, Claire seemed to remember something. She patted her forehead and said, "Oh, by the way, Charlie, I have a meeting with someone from the Grand Group tomorrow that I can't get out of. Can you pick Elsa up from the airport for me? And maybe find a nice place to take her for a welcome dinner or something?" Charlie promised. "Sure, I'll make the arrangements for tomorrow. And find a good place," Claire added. "Don't worry about the cost. Here, take my card." With that, she handed him her wallet. Charlie quickly waved her off. "No, it's okay. I actually know a guy who owns a really nice restaurant. I can arrange it." Charlie pulled out his phone, thinking he'd text Isaac Craven at Aurelius Grand and ask him to set up a dinner. But then he reconsidered. Aurelius Grand was supposed to be a surprise for his wife. To entertain Elsa, it would be better to pick a different spot. So, he sent a text to Orville Hudson instead. "I need to host a dinner for a friend. Can you book me a table at a high-end place, just not at Aurelius Grand?" A moment later, Orville texted back. "Don't worry, Mr. Charlie. I own a place called The Mansion. It's one of the top restaurants in Oris Hill, right up there with Aurelius Grand. I'll get you our best private room, the Diamond Box, and make sure you get top-notch service." Charlie replied with just one word. "Okay." The next day, Claire was at the Grand Group all day, busy working out the details of their new partnership. Charlie called Doris and asked her about Elsa's new job. Doris was surprised that Charlie even knew about it. She explained that Elsa had applied for a position as an administrative director, which was a mid-level management role. Her resume looked great, so the company decided to hire her. In fact, she'd already been officially appointed a few days ago. So Charlie asked her to keep an eye on this woman once Elsa started, and to let him know if anything seemed off. After talking with Doris, Charlie grabbed a cab that afternoon and headed to the airport, ready to pick up Claire's best friend, Elsa. He had just gotten out of the cab and was about to head into the arrival hall when a luxury car screeched to a halt right in front of him. Claire's cousin, Harold, stuck his head out the window, scowling at Charlie. "Charlie, what are you doing here?" "I'm here to pick up a friend of Claire's," Charlie said, frowning. He noticed the other people in the car were familiar faces too, Gerald and Wendy. Harold scoffed. "You mean Miss Gardner, right? We're here to take care of her, so you're not needed. Get lost." Charlie snorted coldly. "If anyone should get lost, it's you." With that, Charlie ignored them and walked straight into the arrival hall. Harold looked like he was about to start cursing, but Wendy, sitting next to him, quickly reminded him. "Brother, Elsa will be here any second. Grandma told you to make a good impression. If you can get her to marry you, our family's status would be unmatched. Don't let this loser ruin it." That snapped Harold back to reality. He'd almost forgotten the main reason he was here today. Picking Elsa up was just part of it. The real goal was to impress her and, hopefully, win her over. The Gardner family's influence in Eastcliff is huge. If he could marry into that family, it would put them on a whole new level. The Wilson family's fortune would skyrocket. So, he swallowed his anger at Charlie, and the three of them quickly got out of the car and rushed into the arrival hall. Just then, they spotted an incredibly eye-catching, beautiful young woman in the crowd. She had long, chestnut-colored hair and wore a white skirt that perfectly highlighted her amazing figure. Even though she had on sunglasses, you could see her skin was porcelain white, and her lips were a fiery red. Her beauty and charm were impossible to miss. Looking closer, she was just as beautiful as Claire, though they each had their own unique style. For a moment, everyone in the arrivals area seemed to have their eyes fixed on her. Harold was completely stunned. Even Gerald, who was just there for the show, was shocked. He couldn't help but sigh. Wow. Girls from Eastcliff really have a different vibe. Just then, Elsa spotted them and hurried over, waving. Gerald, Wendy, and Charlie, long time no see! Harold's heart was racing with excitement. He jumped in first. Long time no see, Elsa. You look amazing! Charlie smiled. Long time no see. Harold quickly cut in again. Elsa, since I knew you were coming, I booked a private room at the best hotel in Orris Hill. We're all set to go. We can head over now. Elsa glanced at Charlie, then turned back to Harold apologetically. Harold, I'm so sorry. I already made plans with Claire and Charlie. Let's reschedule for another day. I'm going to be in Orris Hill for a long time, so we'll have plenty of other chances. Hearing that, Harold's heart filled with anger. On such an important day, Charlie, that useless freeloader, had to show up and ruin everything. It was just awful. So, he said deliberately, Elsa, to welcome you properly, I booked the Gold Box at the mansion. It's the most famous restaurant in Orris Hill. It has a minimum spend of $300,000. As he spoke, he shot Charlie a smug look and grinned. I have no idea where my stay-at-home brother-in-law is taking you for dinner. I just hope it's not some cheap place. That would be a huge insult to you, wouldn't it? Charlie was a little surprised to hear that Harold's choice was the mansion. What a coincidence, he thought. Wasn't it Orville Hudson who said he owned the mansion? And it seemed he had also arranged a dinner there for him. Just then, Gerald, who was standing to the side, looked shocked. Harold, you actually managed to book the Gold Box at the mansion? That's not something just anyone can reserve. Harold smiled smugly. Honestly, besides the top diamond box at the mansion, which I can't book, everything else is no big deal. Of course, this was just Harold bragging. The truth was, to get the Gold Box, Mrs. Wilson had to personally pull some strings and pay a lot of money to make it happen. Elsa had heard of the mansion back in Eastcliff and quickly said, We're all friends. There's no need to be so fancy. Harold said dismissively, You're an honored guest. We can't treat you like just any other friend. Then he turned to Charlie again. So, brother-in-law, where did you book your dinner? Charlie said calmly, What a coincidence. I also booked a table at the mansion. Harold burst out laughing. Charlie, you really have no shame, do you? You couldn't even get a reservation for the bronze box at the mansion, and you have the nerve to lie about it here? Charlie smiled coolly. Whether I'm bluffing or not, what's it to you? I'm not inviting you to dinner. Don't you have anything better to do? Harold said coldly, Yeah, right. A guy like you wouldn't even be allowed in the front door of the mansion. Elsa couldn't stand seeing them gang up on Charlie. She knew he was a live-in son-in-law with no money or position in the Wilson family.
It was totally unrealistic to think he could afford a top-tier restaurant. She figured Charlie was just saying it to save face. So, not wanting him to be completely humiliated, she stepped in. "Hey, there's no need to argue about this. If you all booked the same place, then we should just go together." Heir sneered at Charlie. "All right, for Elsa's sake, I'll let you tag along for a meal. You can see what a real high-end restaurant looks like for once." Charlie just scoffed and ignored him. Orville would get on his knees the second he saw him, so what did he care about this restaurant Orville owned? Too bad an idiot like Harold was completely clueless. The mansion was a beautiful, traditional Chinese-style hotel. The decor was filled with classic charm and was incredibly luxurious. Even the sign out front was carved from high-quality golden oak. Charlie looked around at the decorations inside the mansion and was a little surprised. He hadn't expected Orville's restaurant to be this nice. He thought he might bring his wife here sometime. Elsa looked around and exclaimed, "I'd heard about the mansion all the way back in Eastcliff, and it definitely lives up to the hype." Harold smiled and said, "Well, when you're in town, Elsa, you deserve the best." Then he glanced over at Charlie and sneered. "Not like some people. If it wasn't for you, they'd never get the chance to set foot in a place like this in their entire lives." Wendy chimed in, deliberately trying to put him on the spot. "Charlie, didn't you say you booked a table at the mansion too? Which room is it? Go on, show us. We're dying to see." Charlie said calmly, "I don't remember the specific room. I just texted the owner and asked him to set something up. Let me check my messages." Harold scoffed. "Do you have any idea who the owner is? Cut the crap. The owner here is the famous Mr. Orville Hudson. You better watch what you say. If Mr. Hudson heard you talking like that, he'd have your head." At that moment, Charlie pulled out his phone, checked the text message Orville had sent him last night, and said casually, "He said he reserved the diamond box for me." When Harold heard Charlie's words, he burst out laughing. "The diamond box? Charlie, you're going to make me die laughing. Do you know who gets to go to the diamond box? Only the most powerful people in Oris Hill can get in there. Maybe 10 people total. You're so full of it." Elsa had been quiet, but she couldn't help thinking that Charlie was way too concerned with saving face. How could someone like him possibly get a reservation for the diamond box? She always knew he didn't have money or influence and was a bit of a loser, but she never thought he'd be this vain. What a disappointment. Charlie just laughed and didn't say a word. To him, the people making fun of him were just a bunch of idiots, and he couldn't be bothered to engage with them. Gerald also said, sarcastically, "Charlie, even my dad can't get a table in the diamond box. Who do you think you are?" Wendy echoed, "Gerald's right. Forget about eating in the diamond box. A guy like him isn't even worthy of eating their scraps." Charlie looked at Gerald and couldn't help but sneer. What an idiot. Mr. Hudson had just beaten up his brother yesterday, and here he was, bold enough to come to his restaurant for dinner. So he asked, deliberately, "Hey, Gerald, I heard something happened to your brother yesterday." Gerald frowned. "How do you know about that?" Then he added, "My brother was attacked yesterday. He's still unconscious. We're trying to find out who hurt him and stripped him. Do you know anything?" Charlie shook his head, playing dumb. "No idea. I just heard something happened to him, but I don't know the details." Gerald said with contempt, "You're trash. Keep the White family's name out of your mouth. Next time, I won't be so polite." Charlie just smiled and ignored him. What a family of morons, he thought. They didn't even know his brother got knocked out by Orville? This was actually pretty funny. Just then, a man in a black suit hurried over to their group. He looked a little familiar, and then Charlie realized he was one of Orville's bodyguards. As soon as the man saw Charlie, he recognized him. His face lit up with respect and warmth, and he almost bowed on the spot. Charlie quickly shook his head at him. The man in black caught himself immediately,
figuring Mr. Charlie didn't want to draw attention. So instead, he just said, "Right this way, guests. Your private room has been ready for a while." Harold was stunned when he heard that. Since when was the service for the gold box at the mansion this good? Someone came to greet him personally before he even gave his name? Talk about getting the VIP treatment. Gerald, standing beside him, was impressed. "Harold, man, you've got some serious pull. I think that guy works directly for Mr. Hudson. It looks like he really respects you. You know him personally? I never knew. Wow, you really keep things on the lowdown." Harold laughed, a smug look spreading across his face. No need to brag about stuff like this. It's better to keep a low profile. Elsa was a little surprised. She hadn't expected Harold to actually have some real connections in Oris Hill. Compared to Charlie, he seemed so much more capable. It seemed like getting to know Oris Hill through him would make things a lot easier for her. The man in black respectfully led everyone to the door of the diamond box. Then he took out a clipboard, handed it directly to Charlie, and said softly, "Sir, could you please sign for the room?" This diamond box was reserved specifically for Charlie, and he needed to sign to confirm it. Charlie smiled and took the pen and paper. He was just about to write his name when Harold's voice cut in. "Hey, what the hell? Put the pen down!" Harold stormed over, snatched the pen and paper from Charlie's hand, scribbled his own name down, and yelled at Charlie, "Are you kidding me? Who do you think you are? I'm the one who booked this room. What gives you the right to sign for it?" The man in black was completely stunned. He looked at Charlie with a questioning expression, as if to ask, "Should I take care of this guy for you?" Charlie said calmly, "It's fine. If he wants to sign, let him." In front of Elsa, Charlie didn't want to make things too awkward. After all, she was his wife's best friend. Soon, everyone was seated inside the private room. Harold made sure Elsa sat at the head of the table, while Charlie sat alone in a corner. Only Elsa spoke to him from time to time. Before long, waiters began bringing out incredible dishes and wine. Every dish was made with the finest ingredients. The finest Maine lobster, and even 10-pound Maine lobsters were just supporting dishes here. Even the liquor was a rare, aged bourbon whiskey, and a single half-pound bottle could sell for more than $100,000. Elsa was no stranger to luxury, but even she was shocked by how extravagant this meal was. Gerald. "Harold, how much did this meal set you back?" Harold said triumphantly, "My budget for this was $300,000. Gerald said in surprise, "This is way more than $300,000. The bottles of wine alone cost more than that." Harold was secretly alarmed and suddenly felt like something wasn't right. Thinking back on how the man in the black suit had acted, could it be that Orville had given him some kind of special treatment? But that was impossible. He'd never even met the guy. Elsa's beautiful eyes sparkled. She glanced at Harold and said, "Harold, thank you." When Harold heard Elsa's words, he smiled and said, "It's nothing, really. This is how it should be." With that, Harold smirked and asked Charlie, "Charlie, I bet you've never eaten anything this good in your life, have you?" Charlie sneered. "What makes you so sure?" Harold said contemptuously, "You're eating my food and still talking trash." If you've ever had a meal like this before, I'll eat my own hat. Charlie just smiled, saying nothing. The life he'd lived as a child was so luxurious, most people couldn't even imagine it. In the Wade family, a meal like this would be considered food for the servants. Seeing Charlie's silence, Wendy said angrily, "Charlie, What's with your attitude? How dare you talk to my brother like that? You want me to have you thrown out? Because I will. We're generous enough to let you eat with us, and you're acting like a total jerk. You're just a pathetic loser. However, at that very moment, the door to the private room was kicked wide open, and a harsh voice yelled, "Who the hell are you clowns? Who let you into this room?" As soon as he finished speaking, a man in a suit and a thick gold chain stepped in. A nasty, centipede-like scar ran from the corner of his eye all the way down to his chin. This man held a bill in one hand and a wooden club in the other, his face fierce and menacing. A dozen beefy guys covered in tattoos lined up behind him, surrounding everyone. Everyone was stunned and panicked. What was going on? The leader was a man named Blake, Orville's right-hand man. He'd made his name fighting alongside Orville back in the day, and was a well-known figure in Eris Hill. This time, Orville had told him that the extremely important Mr. Charlie would be using the diamond box at the mansion, and that he needed to make sure everything was arranged perfectly. But he never thought that when he was checking on the rooms, he would discover that the diamond box was signed for by Harold Wilson. He was furious, but also terrified. He was raging that this damn Harold had taken over the room he had prepared for a very important guest. He was terrified. The real guests were on their way, and there was only one banquet table set up in the diamond box. If his guest of honor arrived and saw this, he was a dead man. What was he supposed to do? At that moment, Harold stood up and demanded, "What do you think you're doing? I reserved this room. Why are you busting in here making trouble?" Blake pointed a finger at Harold. "Are you Harold Wilson?" Harold nodded proudly. "I am," Blake said coldly. "Bring him to me." Hearing this, two huge, muscular guys grabbed Harold and dragged him forward. "What are you doing? Get your hands off me!" "Shut your mouth," one of the guys snarled, kicking the back of Harold's knee. Harold collapsed to the floor, kneeling directly in front of Blake. Blake's cold eyes stared down at Harold, his glare as sharp and chilling as a knife. The sign-in sheet was thrown right at Harold's head. Blake snarled, "Who gave you permission to use this room?" Harold, trying to act calm, said, "There must be some misunderstanding. I booked the gold box in advance, and I paid the 300,000 deposit." Gerald chimed in, "Yeah, what's your problem? Harold booked this room. Don't you guys have any rules?" Blake spat on the floor and then slapped Harold hard across the face. "The gold box? This is the damn diamond box, you moron. It's for our most distinguished guests. You think a piece of trash like you gets to be in here?" As soon as he said that, everyone froze. The diamond box? No wonder the room was so luxurious and the food and wine were the best of the best. It turned out they weren't in the gold box at all. Gerald broke out in a cold sweat. The diamond box was for people so far above him, he wasn't even qualified to set foot inside, let alone use it. Wendy quickly said, "Brother, you know Mr. Hudson, right? Hurry up and explain to them." Harold, terrified, shrieked, "Shut up! What are you talking about? Someone like me would never know Mr. Hudson." "But you just said," Wendy started. Elsa watched the siblings argue, finally realizing that everything Harold had said before was just bragging. She felt a wave of disappointment. Blake sneered. "You dare to drop Mr. Hudson's name? You guys have some nerve." He stood up and barked an order to his men. "Hold this man's hand down. I'm going to teach him a lesson." Harold was immediately pinned, unable to move. A second later, Blake grabbed a nearby stick and, without a moment's hesitation, swung it down hard. My hand is broken!" Harold screamed, sweat pouring down his face. A foul smell rose from his pants as he fainted from the pain and shame. Seeing this, Gerald and Wendy turned pale with fear. Harold, who had been so full of himself just a moment ago, had been taken down in an instant. How could they not be terrified? Elsa was scared too, shaking all over. She hid behind Charlie and whispered in horror, "What are we going to do? Are they going to kill him?" Charlie patted her on the shoulder and said calmly, "Don't be afraid. I'm here. No one will touch you." Elsa glanced at Charlie, grateful. Even though she knew he couldn't possibly solve a problem like this, his words still made her feel a little bit safer. Blake kicked Harold, who was lying on the floor, and cursed, "What an idiot." Then Blake turned his head and looked at Gerald. "And you're the one who said I don't have any rules, right? Come here, you worthless piece of trash." Gerald was so scared that he started shaking. "Blake," he stammered, "I'm with the White family." "The White family?" Blake grinned. "Who cares about the White family?" Blake spat dismissively, kicked Gerald to the ground and said coldly, "Mr. Hudson himself just taught some idiot from the White family a lesson yesterday, and you have the nerve to use their name in his place?" "What?" Gerald was suddenly terrified. He thought his brother had been attacked by some gangster, but he never expected that it was actually Orville who beat him. Just as that terrifying thought hit him, Blake raised the stick and slammed it down on his head. The world started to spin for Gerald. His head buzzed. Blood poured from his mouth and nose, and everything went blurry. Wendy screamed in horror. Gerald was her fiancé, her only ticket into the White family. If something happened to him, her life would be ruined. "An ambulance! Someone call an ambulance!" Wendy yelled, panicking. She shakily pulled out her phone, but she was too scared to even dial, so she just kept screaming. Blake frowned and cursed. "You little brat, you dare make a call? Shut her up. Let's see how she talks then." "Yes, boss." Hearing this, the men all grinned cruelly. Wendy panicked and scrambled backward, but her back hit the wall. There was nowhere to go. "Get over here," a man with one eye said, viciously grabbing a fistful of Wendy's hair and yanking her up. Then, staring right into Wendy's face, the man drew his arm back, ready to strike. These guys were ruthless. They'd been fighting alongside Blake for years. In just a couple of hits, Wendy's face was swollen and bruised. A beating like that would leave permanent scars on her face. Even with medical care, it was basically disfigurement. Seeing how cruel Blake was, Elsa trembled again, pressing herself against Charlie's back. The two of them were huddled together. Just then, Blake spotted Charlie and Elsa in the corner and barked an order. "And those two, beat them senseless. They dared to take over the diamond box I had set aside for my special guests. They're just as guilty." His goon didn't hesitate, reaching out to grab Elsa. "I'd like to see you try and touch her." Charlie's eyes turned ice cold as he kicked the muscular goon to the ground. Seeing this, Blake's face darkened.
"Who the hell do you think you are?"
he snarled. Charlie said calmly, "I'm someone you can't afford to cross."
"Kid, you've got a death wish."
Charlie shook his head and dialed Orville's number. "Mr. Hudson, I'm in the diamond box right now. Get down here immediately." After he said that, Charlie hung up and looked at Blake coldly. Elsa's face was pale. Harold had just bragged about knowing Mr. Hudson, and look how horribly that turned out. Now Charlie was saying such disrespectful things right to Blake's face. He was going to get himself killed. Wendy, her face beaten and swollen, heard what Charlie said and looked at him in horror. Was this idiot still trying to act tough? Was he trying to get them all killed? Blake sneered. "You dare disrespect Mr. Hudson in front of me? You must have a death wish, or you're just plain stupid." As soon as he finished speaking, Blake waved his hand to his men and said viciously, "Take him out for me." Suddenly, a voice boomed from outside the room. "Damn it, Blake! Are you trying to get yourself killed? You dare to touch Mr. Charlie? I'll chop you up and feed you to the dogs. You better believe it. Blake froze, looking like he'd been struck by lightning. Mr. Hudson is here. Mr. Charlie? Who is Mr. Charlie? A second later, Orville rushed in, trembling, and kicked Blake straight to the ground. You're an idiot! You can't even recognize Mr. Charlie? I'll kill you! Orville kept kicking Blake, yelling at him frantically. Blake, who had been acting so tough just moments ago, now looked like a drowned rat. Elsa was speechless. What was happening? The goons were also panicking. This young guy was actually Mr. Charlie? They had just tried to attack him. They really had a death wish. Orville yelled at the others. What are you all just standing there for? Get on your knees and apologize to Mr. Charlie. Mr. Charlie, we're so sorry. We were blind not to see who you were. We almost messed with you. Please, let us go. The men dropped to their knees, bowing and scraping, apologizing frantically. Blake was terrified too. He dropped to his knees and begged for mercy. I'm so sorry, Mr. Charlie. Please forgive me. Please spare me this one time. Orville even slapped himself, saying nervously, Mr. Charlie, this is my fault. I failed, and I let my men bother you and your friends. Charlie glanced at Elsa and said lightly, I just invited my wife's friend to dinner. Then he looked at the others and said coldly, They are not my friends. Elsa was completely shocked. It turned out Charlie wasn't bragging at all. He really had booked a room at the mansion, and it was the exclusive diamond box. More importantly, this room had been reserved for him by Orville himself. Remembering how she had looked down on Charlie before, Elsa's face flushed red with shame. At that moment, Harold trembled when he heard what they were saying. What was happening? Charlie, that loser, was a friend of Mr. Hudson? Wendy was terrified too. Charlie actually knew Orville Hudson. The crazy part was how nice Mr. Hudson was to him. Then she looked at her fiancé Gerald, who was unconscious and bleeding on the floor. Orville wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and promised, Mr. Charlie, don't worry. This will never happen again. From now on, you can come to the mansion and use the diamond box whenever you want. As for him, I'll deal with him later. Charlie just grunted, then turned to Elsa. Elsa, I've had enough to eat. This place is a mess. Let's get out of here. Charlie's voice snapped Elsa out of her shock. What about the others? She asked instinctively. She looked at Harold, Gerald, and Wendy's awful conditions and couldn't help but worry. Charlie said casually, Let Mr. Hudson handle it. Orville immediately added, Mr. Charlie, don't worry. I'll get an ambulance and have them taken to the hospital for treatment. All right. Charlie nodded. In that case, we'll get going. Elsa was still in a bit of a daze as she followed Charlie out of the mansion. Once they were outside, Elsa couldn't calm her racing heart. She looked at Charlie, who seemed completely unfazed, and felt like he was shrouded in a fog, mysterious and deep. Charlie, what was all that back there? Before Elsa could finish, Charlie cut her off, saying flatly, Elsa, please keep what happened today a secret. If Claire finds out, she'll be upset that I'm involved with shady people like Orville. Elsa had no choice but to nod. Okay, I understand. After Charlie and Elsa left, Orville arranged for an ambulance to take everyone to the hospital. Wendy's jaw was broken, leaving her face permanently disfigured. One of Harold's hands was nearly useless, and it would take a long time to heal, if ever. As for Gerald, he had a severe concussion. Although he was out of immediate danger, he would suffer from the after effects for the rest of his life. Elsa's meeting with Doris Young from the Grand Group was tomorrow.
After leaving the mansion, Charlie drove her back to her hotel and then left. Elsa was still reeling from the shock of dinner as she thought about what her future held. She had come to Oris Hill supposedly to work for the Grand Group, but her real reason was a heavy family responsibility. Her dad had told her some top-secret news. The Wades, the most powerful family of Eastcliff, had found their heir, who had been missing for many years. They had also bought the Grand Group to let the young man learn the ropes. In other words, the Wade family heir was right here in Oris Hill, and he was the chairman of the Grand Group. Although the Gardner family was well respected in Eastcliff, they were strictly second tier, 1,000 miles away from the status of the Wade family. Because of this, the Gardner family was hoping Elsa could use her position to find a way to meet the Wade family heir. If she could start a relationship with him, and that led to a marriage, it would be a huge victory for them. Even though Elsa was repulsed by the idea, she couldn't ignore the immense pressure on her shoulders to revive her family's fortunes. She had traveled all this way to Oris Hill and taken a job at the Grand Group for one reason: to get close to its mysterious chairman and find a way to catch his eye. Back in Eastcliff, Elsa was considered a top beauty among the elite. She was confident that her looks, intelligence, skills, and great figure would be more than enough to capture the attention of the Wade family heir. If she could really marry him, the Gardner family's fortunes would be completely restored. They would secure their place as a top-tier family. Just thinking about it filled her with anticipation for starting her new job tomorrow. At the same time, she was filled with curiosity about the mysterious man from the Wade family. She couldn't help but wonder, how old was this Wade family heir? What did he look like? Was he charming, tall, and handsome? She couldn't resist pulling out her phone and opening her video app. She clicked on a video in her favorites that had tens of millions of views. It was the viral video of Charlie confronting the sales director at Rare Earth with a mountain of cash. She'd watched this video over and over, analyzing it. She knew it was filmed in Oris Hill, right around the time the news broke about the Wade heir being found. Because of that, she guessed that the insanely rich guy in the video had to be the youngest of the Wade family, the chairman of the Grand Group. She zoomed in on the man's back, studying his every move. From the blurry video, she could tell the famous internet mystery man was probably in his 20s, tall and thin, but his face was never visible. Still, his build was impressive, not far off from some American supermodels. With a body like that, she figured his face had to be just as good. But then, Elsa felt a strange sense of familiarity. Why did this guy's posture seem so much like Charlie's? She dismissed the thought almost immediately. It was impossible. Charlie was just the son-in-law of the Wilson family. What kind of power did the Wilsons have? They couldn't even compare to a single hair on the Wade family's head. If Charlie really was the Wade heir, why would he be stuck living with a down-and-out family like the Wilsons? She decided she was just overthinking things. The next day, Elsa arrived at the Grand Group bright and early. Vice Chairwoman Doris Young personally handled her onboarding. Doris took her to the administrative department, walked her through her new responsibilities, and then said, "Elsa, if you ever have any questions, you can ask me directly or just come by my office." Elsa nodded gratefully, then asked cautiously, "Miss Young, I was wondering if I might have a chance to meet the chairman. Since I'll be handling administrative affairs for the company, I'm worried I might accidentally overlook something important if I've never met him." Doris was immediately on high alert. Charlie had asked her just the other day to keep an eye on Elsa, and now, on her first day, she was already asking about the chairman. It was too much of a coincidence to ignore. She had no idea what this beautiful girl who had come all this way to work for the Grand Group was really after. She said to Elsa, "Our chairman doesn't come into the office very often.
But if he does, I'll let him know. If he wants to meet with you, I'll be sure to inform you." Elsa's heart sank with a little disappointment. But she managed a smile and said, "Thank you, Mrs. Young." As soon as Doris Young was back in her office, she called Charlie to report what had happened. The moment Charlie heard that Elsa had tried to meet him on her very first day, his guard went up. This woman was definitely here for him. What was her goal? Was she trying to get close to him to hurt him or to seduce him? Whatever her reason, the thought of it left a bad taste in Charlie's mouth. So he decided right then to keep his distance from Elsa, and more importantly, to make sure she never found out who he really was. That night, to celebrate Elsa's new job, Claire made a reservation at a fancy hotel to treat her to dinner. As Claire's husband, Charlie was expected to go with her. This made Charlie's mood sink. Just when he had decided to keep his distance from Elsa, he was now going to have dinner with her that very night. But, as annoyed as he was, he still got ready to go to the hotel with Claire. However, when they arrived, Charlie's jaw dropped. He realized Claire had chosen the Sky Garden at the Aurelius Grand. The Sky Garden Ballroom is typically reserved for high-profile guests, so they never offer private room service. But Charlie had managed to book the entire place for their wedding anniversary, something the Aurelius Grand had never done before, and their anniversary was just 3 days away. A massive, eye-catching sign stood at the entrance of the Aurelius Grand. "The Sky Garden will be privately booked in 3 days. We apologize for any inconvenience, but it will be unavailable to all other guests at that time." Everyone who saw the notice was in shock. Someone had actually booked the entire Sky Garden at the Aurelius Grand? They never did private bookings. It was said that the children of several powerful politicians in the city had wanted to have their wedding receptions there, but they were all turned down flat. Who on earth had enough clout to book the entire Sky Garden? Claire saw the sign and gasped in surprise. "Wow, the Sky Garden is actually booked? That's incredible." Charlie, standing beside her, just smiled and said, "What's so incredible? It's a ballroom, isn't it? Of course people can book it." "You don't get it," Claire said, her tone serious. "The Aurelius Grand isn't just some local hotel. It's one of the top hotel chains in the world. Their Sky Garden is their signature feature, and it's meant exclusively for high-end guests. If one big shot books the whole place, then all the other wealthy guests can't use it. That's why they never offer it for private events." With that, Claire couldn't help but sigh. I can't even imagine who this person is. To be able to book this entire place is just amazing. Charlie deliberately smiled and said, "Maybe it's someone who really loves his wife and wants to throw a wedding celebration for her." Claire's eyes widened. A wedding for his wife? Here? Wow, he must really love her. His wife is so incredibly lucky. Hearing his wife say that made Charlie really happy. It looked like the place he picked was going to be a huge hit with his wife on their anniversary. The two of them went into the Sky Garden and found their reserved table. Elsa showed up just a few minutes later. "Claire! Elsa!" The two friends hugged each other, overjoyed. Afterward, they held hands and chatted for a long time, catching up on everything, before finally settling down. Elsa said, "Claire, you're spending way too much. You didn't have to pick the Sky Garden." Claire smiled and said, "When you're here, I have to go all out. I don't care about the cost." Elsa chuckled. "You're seriously the best girlfriend ever." Claire said, "Honestly, I'm not even important enough to get a table here on my own. I had to ask Doris Young, the vice chairman of the M Grand Group, to help me get this reservation using her membership card." Elsa sighed. "The Sky Garden seems super exclusive. You have to be like a diamond member or something, right?" Yeah, Claire nodded. Honestly, this is my first time ever being here. Elsa smiled and said, "Thank you so much, my generous queen." After a moment, she added, "By the way, when I was coming up just now, I saw a sign outside saying the Sky Garden was booked out in 3 days." "Yes," Claire said, "it's weird. The Sky Garden has never taken private bookings before. I have no idea what's different this time." Elsa nodded and said casually, "A little while ago there was this crazy rich guy in Heir's Hill. He bought some necklace and showed up with dozens of luxury cars, a bunch of guys in black suits, and over $10 million in cash. Did you see that video?" Charlie shook his head, but Claire said, "I saw it. The whole thing was a huge spectacle." Elsa said, "Everyone's trying to figure out who he is." Claire shrugged. "What's there to guess about?" Elsa smiled and said, "It's the talk of the town. Everyone wants to know who's got that much power. Some people are saying it has to be the new chairman of the Grant Group." For a second, Charlie froze, but he quickly composed himself. Elsa continued, "And now the Sky Garden is booked out. I have a feeling the person who booked the garden is the same one who bought that diamond in the video." Claire sighed dramatically. "I haven't seen you in forever, and you're still the biggest gossip I know." Elsa laughed and said, "Hey, gossip is what keeps life interesting." Then Elsa added, "I'm definitely coming back in 3 days to see for myself. I have to know who has that kind of pull and can reserve the entire Sky Garden." Hearing this, Charlie's stomach dropped. He just wanted to surprise his wife and give her the beautiful wedding celebration they never had. He didn't want the whole world watching. But it seemed he had seriously underestimated how much buzz the Sky Garden would create. He realized now that tons of people in Heir's Hill probably had the same idea as Elsa. They all wanted to see who was behind the reservation for the Sky Garden. This was getting complicated. He thought to himself, "I need to talk to Isaac and get everything sorted out. Whatever happens, I can't let my identity get out." During their meal, Elsa said to them, "So while I'm in Heir's Hill, I made plans with some of our old classmates. We all thought it would be a good chance to have a reunion. What do you guys think?" Charlie immediately said, "If you're having a class reunion, you can count me out." "Why?" Elsa asked. "Even though we weren't in the same 4-year program, we were still classmates for a year. When the old master of the Wilson family had taken Charlie in, he had sent him to Heir's Hill University so he could get to know Claire. He had been in the same class as Claire for their senior year. After they graduated, they got married right away. But Charlie had only been classmates with those people for a year, and most of them had always looked down on him. He hadn't made any real friends, so the thought of a class reunion didn't interest him at all. Claire didn't really want to go to the reunion either, so she said, "I'm not going either. I haven't really kept in touch with most of my classmates since graduation." Elsa quickly said, "The main reason for the reunion this time is that Darren from our class is opening a restaurant. It opens tomorrow. He's inviting everyone to come hang out at his new place and have a meal together." Then Elsa added, "Come on, it's his grand opening. It would be kind of rude not to go, don't you think?" Just as she finished speaking, all 3 of their phones buzzed with a text notification. Then a flood of more notifications came in. They all pulled out their phones to see what was going on. It turned out that Darren had created a group chat for their old classmates, and it had quickly grown to over 30 people. Darren had written in the group, "Hey everyone, the little restaurant I invested in is officially opening tomorrow at noon. It's here in Heir's Hill. All of you who are in town should come by and check it out. It'll be a mini class reunion. And what's even better, Elsa, one of the 2 campus beauties from our class, is also going to be in Heir's Hill for work. She'll be at the party too. I hear she's still single, so all you bachelors in the group better hurry up." Immediately, a bunch of people started replying. "Wow, congratulations! Oh, Elsa's in Heir's Hill? How come we didn't know?"
I'll definitely be there. What about Claire, the other campus beauty from our class? Is she coming? I heard Claire ended up with Charlie, the guy who joined our class late, right? And I heard he's still living with the Wilson family? Yeah, I heard that too. Not sure if it's true or not. I haven't seen either of them since graduation. I heard it's not even a real marriage, that they're married in name only. Is that true? Claire saw the messages and said to Charlie, "Don't let it get to you." Charlie just smiled slightly. It's okay. What they're saying is basically the truth anyway. I'm used to it by now. Elsa quickly typed a message in the group chat. "Hey, stop gossiping about people. I'm having dinner with them right now, and they're an amazing couple." Oh, it's Elsa. A bunch of guys immediately started sucking up to her. Just then, Darren, the group leader, tagged Charlie directly in the chat. "Charlie, hey man, even though you were only in our class for a short time, we got along really well back in school. You and your wife have to be there tomorrow." Charlie actually had a good impression of Darren. The guy was genuinely nice. He was always kind to everyone and never made fun of anyone. He was one of the few classmates Charlie actually got along with. Seeing Darren's personal invitation, Charlie replied right away, "Okay, man. I'll definitely be there to support you tomorrow." Darren replied instantly, "That's awesome. We have to catch up tomorrow." Seeing that Charlie had agreed to the reunion, Claire reminded him, "We have to get a gift for the grand opening of Darren's restaurant. We can't show up empty-handed." Charlie nodded. "Okay, I'll buy him a gift tomorrow morning." "Okay," Claire said. "Actually, I have to go to the M Grand group tomorrow morning anyway." Elsa asked, surprised, "Oh, you're going to the M Grand group tomorrow? When you're done, come find me. I can drive your car over to Darren's restaurant at noon." Claire smiled. "I think you're getting ahead of yourself. I don't have a car. I usually take a taxi or the bus. Sometimes Charlie picks me up on his e-bike." "What?" Elsa blurted out. "You're a director and you haven't bought a car yet?" Claire said, "I haven't been working that long, and I haven't made much money. Charlie and I share our expenses, and I have to help out with my mom's living costs. I can only save maybe a few thousand a month, which isn't enough to buy a car." Then Claire added, "Besides, to be honest, the bus is pretty convenient, and when the weather's nice, Charlie's e-bike is great too." Elsa said, "Sometimes you have to keep up appearances. You're the director of the Wilson group now, and you're the one working directly with the M Grand group. If you don't even have a car, people are going to talk." Elsa said seriously, "Sometimes you have to keep up appearances. You're the director of the Wilson group now, and you're the one working directly with the M Grand group. If you don't even have a car, people are going to talk." Charlie had to admit Elsa had a point. His wife had always been too frugal, and most of the money she earned went straight to his mother-in-law, so she never really spent anything on herself. His mother-in-law was a bottomless pit who only took and never gave. She'd saved up over $1 million just to throw it away on a shady investment, instead of spending a fraction of that to buy her own daughter a car. Thinking about it, he realized he needed to buy a car for his wife. It would make it so much easier for her to get around and run errands, and it would look better when she was meeting clients for business. Having made up his mind, he decided to go check out a car dealership first thing tomorrow morning. After dinner, the couple and Elsa left, taking a cab home together. On the cab's radio, the hosts were talking about the Sky Garden at the Aurelius Grand being booked for a private event. The hosts were amazed, saying it was the first time in history that the Aurelius Grand had made an exception and closed off the entire Sky Garden for someone. They were also dying to know who could have that kind of influence. The cab driver chimed in, "I bet you anything, the person who booked the whole Sky Garden has to be one of those crazy rich guys you see on the internet." Charlie stayed quiet, but he was surprised. It seemed like the news of the Sky Garden at the Aurelius Grand being reserved had really made waves all over Oris Hill. That night, the news spread like wildfire all over Oris Hill.
Soon, it was the talk of the town, and everyone was buzzing about it. Everyone knew that the Aurelius Grand had a strict membership policy, and only their top-tier members ever got to use the Sky Garden. As for booking the entire place, forget about it. Even diamond-level members weren't allowed to do that. So the question of who could possibly book the entire Sky Garden became the biggest mystery in the city. Rumors started flying. Some said it was that super rich guy who went viral all over the country. Others claimed it was some wealthy foreigner. And then there were those who said it was a mysterious man and that he'd booked the place to throw a huge romantic wedding. That last rumor, the wedding one, seemed to be the most believable. Before long, that's what everyone was talking about, and the rumors just kept growing.